I love the Nintendo Switch, and I really do like the Switch eShop. It's not the best eShop in the world, it's got a ton of games on there, and a lot of it's junk. So, how do you find the diamonds in the rough? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at a couple games that were sent to the show, and I'll let you know if they're worth playing.
Super Mega Space Blaster Special Turbo.
First game up is Super Mega Space Blaster Special Turbo. Man, that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Released in January of 2020, this was developed and published by Bare Knuckle Development. So this is one of those classic asteroids ripoff kind of games where it's a single screen, you're piloting a spaceship, and you're going around trying to destroy enemies, asteroids to break off into smaller ones, collect power-ups, make sure that you keep your ammo up, and you're just trying to go through a bunch of different game missions. So the three main missions where in single player are protecting your base, where you're trying to protect your base at the bottom, it shoots out random items for you when you need them, and it's trying to survive as long as possible. Then there's straight up survival, where you're just piloting yourself around trying to live as long as you can. And then there's the rescue game mode, where you're going around trying to rescue the little spacemen, put them back into dock, and rinse and repeat. The cool thing is, your ship actually controls kind of differently in all of these modes. In the original mode, you're flying around trying to protect your mother base, and you control your rate of fire, you control how you boost, but you never truly stop boosting. Whereas, say, in Spaceman mode, you can actually come to a complete stop if you want. It's kind of cool how it works like that. Then there's straight up survival mode where you're always shooting. So it always changes up that gameplay just enough. Like a lot of these games, if you touch the sides, you will die, but you actually can unlock a mode where you can warp from one edge of the screen to the other to save your ass. So a cool thing about the control is it's actually kind of dual stick, where you can control your turret in a different direction than the way you're piloting, which can really get you out of a jam, and to be honest, I played this for way too long before I realized that I could do that. This game also has a ton of online modes, and there's just so much to unlock. You can unlock more music, you can unlock upgrades to all the different weapons that you can pick up during the course of the game. There's a shop where you can buy everything. There's online leaderboards for every single game mode, and my damn buddy Castlezots just keeps beating me in these. It's just a really solid package overall. The game's only $5, and for $5, I really can't recommend it enough. If you're a fan of asteroids and you just like adding to that classic formula, this is one to go for, and unless you screw up really early on, a gameplay session can last maybe 10 minutes tops. So the more you live, the more you survive, the game just gets harder and harder. There's a definite learning curve, but it's easy to pick up, hard to master, that kind of deal. To me, it's basically a perfect pick up and play eShop game. The sound is fine if unremarkable, the graphics get the job done, and the controls pretty spot on, so I have no complaints. Go track this one down. The next game up is going to be Robots Under Attack. Developed and published by Dimitro Debreas. This came out in January of 2020, and this is a single-player puzzle action arcade kind of game. The gist of this game is, it's another in those long line of physics-based shooter games. So it's single screen, you shoot arrows, and you get one of 4 different types of arrows, and you have to go through increasingly difficult stages to destroy the robots that are on there. You get a limited stock, and only a certain type of arrows for certain levels, and it's puzzle-like. So you have to set off traps, you have to shoot arrows into warps, you have to use gravity engines, you have to turn switches, you have to switch back and forth between your arrows at the right time. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about these, and the less arrows you use, the better score you get. So there's 100 levels in here, and they break them down into what they call seasons, so 10 level blocks. And as you go from one season to another, it adds more gimmicks to each different puzzle, adds more difficulty, and you go from there. After every 50 levels, you get a boss fight as well. So there is a ton of gameplay here. The graphics are really simplistic, but I do kind of like the look of being drawn on graph paper. It's different. The background noise is good. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's almost perfect in the sense that you kind of forget it's there as you're playing. It's way better than playing with no sound in the background. and the sound effects are extremely simple, but they do what they need to do. The control scheme is really simple but really effective. You can switch between your arrows with the shoulder buttons, and you can either use Joy-Con stick and button support to control your arrows, or you can use the gyroscope in single Joy-Con mode. The gameplay as simple as it gets. You're just going from screen to screen trying to figure out the puzzle for each one. But it's effective, and it does a good job of gradually increasing the difficulty so you don't get overly frustrated early on and want to quit. It's one of those ones where you can blow through the earlier levels, but once you get a little further along, probably by about the 3rd or 4th season, where it really starts to get a little tricky and you actually have to use your brain. I'm not super far into it right now, I'm only about a third of the way through, but this is one of those games that's just another great pick up and play kind of game, where if you want to veg out and try to rack your brain a little bit but not get too overly frustrated, it doesn't hold my attention for super long, but it doesn't need to. It's one of those old faithfuls that I can always go back. I'm kind of surprised that this game isn't on any mobile platform, because it seems like it'll be perfect for that. So who knows, maybe if this is successful enough here, it can branch out. I like this one. I didn't think I would at first, but I found myself getting sucked in pretty fast. The game costs $6, which kinda seems a little bit high since there's no online kind of modes, there's no multiplayer, and you do get 100 levels, so it'll definitely rack your brain, but I think if it was maybe like $4, this would have been like a definite must buy. But it's $6, it's not bad, I just don't know if I can recommend it for everyone. Like most Switch eShop games, there's always sales, so if you see it for cheap enough and you have some spare credits lying around, you really can't go wrong with this one. After that, we're going back to the single-screen arcade asteroids-like genre again with Super Bit Blaster XL. Released in March in 2020, this was developed by Nickervision Studios and published by Adam Blerini Nickerson. Yeah. So much like Super Mega Space Blaster, this is a game where you're on a single screen, it's asteroids inspired, you're going around with your ship, trying to destroy everything that's around you. It's different in the sense that you only get essentially one game mode, where you're just flying around trying to survive as long as you can, picking up different items, picking up more ammo, trying to rack up the highest score possible for the leaderboards online. And while it does have that one main game mode, you can split up between having auto fire all the time or being able to control your fire, which really does switch up the experience. Once again, you get a ton of different ships that you can unlock as you get more money and higher scores, which is always cool because the ships play differently. But the coolest part about this game is the fact that each ship has its own chiptune music set, which is just such a nice touch, and I really appreciate that level of detail being thrown in here. Unfortunately, I don't like this one, and the biggest problem with it comes down to the control. Where Super Mega Space Blaster felt nice and twitchy and you had full control, they added almost a lag or a delay in your turning of the ship. I guess that's to try and make it a little more space-like or realistic-ish, but that's not what I want from an arcadey kind of Space Blaster game. It's just that weird kind of thing where I could just never get used to the control no matter how much I try. I can get it to the point where it's like kind of playable, but I always feel like the game's fighting against me and that I'm at like a disadvantage from trying to survive longer. The control for your boost and your brake has been moved back over to the face buttons, which is fine. I think that control setup is fine, but just the actual control of the ship itself just ruins the gameplay for me. The game costs $4, and yeah, once again, like it just doesn't seem worth it to me when there's so much more content in such a similar game like Super Mega Space Blaster for $1 more. Like there's pretty much no way I can recommend this at this price. If you see it on a sale for like $1 or less, then maybe, but I just never liked this one. I'm not going to say stay away, but I can't give it any kind of glowing praise either. If you're the kind of guy who just wants another score attack arcade shooter asteroids game, there's better options out there. Last up, we have Boshers DX Director's Cut. Released in December of 2018, this is a single-player arcade action adventure single-screen game. Man, have I said that before this video? Nah, I don't think so. It was developed and published by Tiki Pod Limited. So this game is like a weird, cool throwback to the old 8-bit days. The first striking thing is the second you boot up the game, you can choose between two art styles, 8-bit NES-like graphics or 8-bit computer graphics. And it's really cool, like, the games look obviously the same in the levels, but it's different enough to have a really distinct feel either way that you do it. This is a twin-stick game, so the whole point of it is you're going around with your twin-stick controls, shooting at enemies, using up to 5 different kinds of guns, and it's all about flicking switches, opening new pathways, and just being able to get to the exit and get out of these levels. In each level is a number of collectibles that you can get, and the more that you get of these in each level, it actually builds up to a total to give you unlockables in the game for different mini-games in the arcade section. So Tiki Pod are the guys who made Aqua Kitty. That game is actually, a version of it is an unlockable in this title, which is awesome. You get 4 games that you can unlock depending on how many of these different items you collect in every level. It's another one of those games that it starts off decent, but this one gets pretty tough pretty fast. Even by the end of the first set, it's kind of tough. It's a little bit hard, and you'll be trying again and again and again to get through it. Luckily, there's obviously infinite continues. It's another one of those pick up and play, try to play it before you get frustrated, and then put it away for a while kind of games. At least that's what it is with me. Like, I actually really like this one, and I'm in the 3rd tier of levels now, so I'm close to being done. This is one of those games where I just get so frustrated, and for a lot of these levels, you really just need to figure out your ultimately correct plan of attack. Like, go kill this thing, hide behind this item, don't get killed by this turret, don't get run over by this, flip this switch, run back over here. Like, rinse and repeat. There's so much trial and error, but it also has a good level of just twitchy action to it as well. The control scheme works pretty well. You move with your left stick, you fire in any one of 8 directions with your right stick, and you can switch between your weapons with the shoulder buttons, and that's really it. I will say though, I do seem to have trouble getting the angled shots to work most of the time. Like, the 4 main directions, they work fine, but the angles always seem to like register maybe half the time, if that, so that's a little bit frustrating. And it happens with any one of my Joy-Cons. I guess that's just the way it works on this. You have to be very direct with your angled shots. Going back to the graphics real quick, I like the fact that the levels will look different enough that some levels I've found to be easier on one graphics setting from another. And I don't know what it is, it's probably just in my head, but some games I would fail like 30 times at using the 8-bit NES graphics, but then I would switch it to the 8-bit computer graphics, and I guess the simplicity of that made it easier for me to be able to figure out exactly what I needed to do. It's kind of cool, so if you're playing this and you find yourself getting frustrated, switch up the graphics. The music in the game's good, it's catchy, it's nothing that you'll be repeating a lot. You'll probably be thinking about the music for like a day or 2 after, and then you'll forget about it. Like I said, this is the kind of game where I'll get really into it for like a day or 2, and then I'll get super frustrated, and I'll put it away for 3 months, and then come back and try to bang through another couple levels. I've been working at this one for a long time, but this is another one that I'm like, oh yeah, Rock Boshers, I'll go back to that for a little bit. And the arcade mini games that they have are really fun. Aqua Kitty is a solid Defender-style clone, and then you get these other ones like this Pyramid game, which harkens back to those old 8-bit computer platformers of just collecting gems and trying to rack up high scores. It's really cool to see a title like this that's just such a love letter to a bygone era. Like, there are so many old retro 8-bit style platformers in the world, but this just seems like something that would have been on a shoo-in for all the microcomputers back in like 1987. And that's an era that just completely passed me by in gaming, so I really do like having something like this around. There's also in-game achievements, so there's a lot of reasons to come back to this title. Overall, this is probably my favorite of the batch that we're looking at today. It costs $7, so it's the most expensive of the titles, but I think it's well worth the money. Like with a lot of these other games, if you have some credits lying around or if you see it on a sale, for the love of God, pick it up. You won't be disappointed. So that'll wrap up this video, guys. Once again, huge thank you and shout out to all the small devs who sent these games for us to take a look at. They keep the Switch going and fresh while we wait 7 months in between big releases. So thank you to them once again. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. Leave a comment below, let me know if you've ever played any of these games or if any of these are interesting to you. And if you're new to the page, why not subscribe? It helps us out a lot. As always, check the links below for our hardware reviews, our video game reviews, and we are the home of the Power Hour podcast, which is also on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Till next time, guys. Cheers.